And so your father owned a travel business.
And my father came over from Europe, from Poland, in 1910 and stayed a short while, then went back and got my mother, and they got married. No, they got married then, and they both came to Toronto, and they lived here all their lives. So have I, my brother and sister.
And when did your father open up his business?
When my father first came, just like all the other immigrants, they worked at Eaton's. Eaton's used to have their own tailoring and ladies wear. They used to manufacture their own things down on Turali Street, around the Bay and Dundas area. And I guess he worked there for a few years, and then bought this little cigar store at the corner of Bay and Dundas, 100 Dundas West, which was a Jewish area at that time. And a Jewish area, mainly dress shops, hat shops, silks and woolens, and United Bakers. United Bakers started back there. We were at 100, they were about 110 or 120.
And when did he set up the business?
It was, when he bought the business, it was a going business, what we used to call a cigar store.
Mm-hmm.
They're now called convenience stores, but they were not nearly as full as what they are now. It used to be mainly cigars and chocolates and pop and newspapers, particularly Jewish newspapers, because we were in a Jewish area. That was the area called the Ward in those days, and not a very elegant ward, but mainly almost 100% Jewish, I would say, except there were a lot of Italians too, further up the street. It was a Jewish-Italian neighborhood, and everybody got along well.
And so he opened up the business
He continued the
after the
cigar
First World
store.
War?
Pardon?
After the First World War, he set it up, or
It
before?
was during or just after. No, in 1918 is when he started up. It must have been a year or so earlier, I guess, because 1918 is when he went into the travel business. The travel business in those days wasn't a travel business, it was called a steamship business, because there was no airplane travel, and train travel was done by the train companies themselves, not by agents. So all the travel business at that time was bringing people over from Europe. People who were already here would bring their wives or their father or their mother or their cousins. Relatives would come over bit by bit, and my dad would be instrumental in making out the papers to bring them over. And he was mainly with the Polish Jews. He was one of the first Jewish agents. There were a couple of others, Dworkins and Hafetz and Zivitz. Those were the big four. And my father and Dworkin dealt mainly with the Polish Jews, and the others, I guess, with Hungarian, etc., etc.
And did he bring over his family first, and then people from the shtetl, or?
They would bring over people from the shtetl, and it would be on a installment basis. I remember in my teen years, I used to go on my bicycle collecting $5 here and $5 there for people who had brought somebody over and paid for their steamship ticket on the installment plan. I think it was the company, mainly the Gdynia America line, which was the Polish line. I guess it was they who supplied the funding for it, and they collected the installments.
And your dad's business was called Wise Travel at that time?
Wise Travel, Wise Travel Bureau at that time, and the business was still under existence by that name.